Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and this dirty BMW you see in front of you here is my newest personal car purchase. This is my new 2006 BMW 330 Ci. I've always wanted to own an E46. To me, this is, I don't know if I want to say the best generation of 3 Series, but it is very high up there. And this specific model year, the 2006, is arguably the best model year to own. Because some of you may be confused. You say, oh, I had a 2006 BMW 3 Series and it was an E90, it was the next generation. Well, that's because they kept the convertible, this 330 Ci here, on the previous generation for 2006, the E46, but it means it's the last model year for the E46. All of the bugs had been worked out, and this is still more of an analog car, less of a digital mess like the E90 was. So ownership should theoretically be much more simple than it would be if I got an E90. Perfect example, my father owned a manual E90 for a while, and mechanically the car was great. However, he'd have random things like all of a sudden his door locks would simply stop working, and he had to get some sort of electrical fix for that. However, E46s are not perfect, and even though this has the great M54B30 inline 6 3-liter naturally aspirated motor, these do have terrible cooling system issues, and this one is not exempt from it. It's got about 150,000 miles on it, and it's had the classic ownership experience of cooling parts have simply been thrown at it. So these cooling systems, essentially after about 75 or 80,000 miles, everything in them starts to get brittle, all the plastic bits, and the best thing to do is entirely go through the cooling system and replace everything. So that is going to be my first project with the car. That's why it hasn't yet been cleaned up. It actually has a detailing appointment with Mason over at Fortitude Auto Detailing in about 3 days. He's gonna come make this thing look proper, but before then, I need to get the cooling system redone and gone through, and I'm gonna do it myself. FCP Euro has a comprehensive kit and instructional video that walks you through the entire process of refurbing your cooling system on an E46. So I'm gonna follow that, and then also Keone over at Cap's Garage in Ypsilanti, Michigan, one of my good friends, he has entirely rebuilt E46s before, so he's been a great resource for me through this whole buying process. Now, my acquisition process of this car is actually a pretty funny story, and I'm going to share that with you later on in the video after, fingers crossed, the car is working properly and we take it for a longer drive. But as you see back here, part of the reason that I acquired a 4-seater convertible is for baby life. Now, admittedly, I don't think a rear-facing car seat is going to fit very well in here, but I'm kind of stepping back a little bit from the street motorcycle riding. Still going to do some dual sport motorcycle riding and some sort of lower speed, fun off-road stuff like that. But while we welcome our new daughter into the world here in a few months, I needed something that Alissa and I could still do driving related that's fun and safer, and I've always enjoyed convertibles. I've owned one. I had a Boxster S, a 2001. That was a good car, but I ended up selling it when I got more into motorcycles, so I'm happy to have a convertible back in the fleet. I'm going to go through a little bit more details on the pros and cons of this specific one later in the video as well. But today, the main focus is actually changing the oil before I do the cooling system, because this car was owned by a family who was probably 50-50 on their maintenance. There's a good amount of service records, but I can tell by the way the service records have kind of displayed themselves and how the car is now, that stuff was not done necessarily preventatively. It was more done reactionary. So I do have a slight worry that there's been some sort of head gasket damage to this car, because for those of you who don't know, what often happens is they leak coolant and then overheat, and then the head gasket gets damaged. So one of the telltale signs of that is if you change the oil and you can see coolant in the oil. So today I'm going to pull it into the garage, jack it up, drain the oil, and take a look at it, make sure it's not milky brown. And then if the oil is good, then we're going to continue on with our FCP Euro oil change, or cooling system change. But all things considered, this is a fairly good condition car. It lived its whole life in Southern California, so there's no rust, and seats are in okay shape. There's a few little things throughout the cabin that I'd like to replace, like this navigation touchscreen has seen better days. There are a few window switches that need replacing. That should be hopefully pretty simple. I want to put some sort of aftermarket unit in here that allows Apple CarPlay and Android Auto support, but I still want it to look decent. I just want to be able to take full advantage of this Harman Kardon sound system. I might have to get my CDs back out. We'll take it for a short drive back to the house. I'm just trying to get the oil kind of heated up a little bit without running any risk of overheating it with any sort of coolant loss. Trying to keep my driving on it minimal. Also, you all will notice that it is indeed the 5-speed automatic, and that was intentional. I know the manual would be more fun for this car, more driving engaging, but I wanted the automatic for 3 reasons. One, I wanted Alissa to be able to drive it. My wife can drive stick, but she's not confident with it, and I don't want her to be discouraged from driving this car just because she's not very confident in its transmission. So I wanted an automatic for that. I also wanted an automatic so that friends and family could drive it. This is a beautiful Southern California car. You can have the windows up like this, tinted, top down, cruise the coast, cruise in the mountains, whatever you want to do. Enjoy this straight 6, and let it be a good spare car. It's not a showroom car. Man, this windshield's really dirty. Like I said, I'm just postponing cleaning it at this point. But this is not a showroom car. It's a driver spec, and so I want people to go out and use it, and more people are going to be able to drive it and drive it easily around traffic with the automatic. And then lastly, if I want to use it around Southern California, and realistically, this is not a super high performance car. It's not an M, and I have other vehicles that I can go do fast driving with. So this is going to be a cruiser, and there are times when I want to be sitting just holding Alyssa's hand. I don't want to be shifting the transmission. So, it's time to change the oil on my new E46. Fingers crossed, it's nice and uncoolanted. It did not take long after taking off the bottom splash shield here to figure out what was the culprit of my bad coolant leak on this E46. Someone, the last person who replaced the radiator, must have not put it in properly because the serpentine belt was rubbing against the expansion tank, which, for those of you who are not very well versed in cars, it's not supposed to happen. There we are. So there's the expansion tank, and there's the belt rubbing against it. Not supposed to happen, clearly, and it was causing both a squeak and a leak, and clearly some oil leaks around here as well, which I'm not quite as concerned with. This is a 150,000 mile car. I would expect a little bit of oil leakage, but yeah, coolant getting all over everything. So it's going to need new belts, and I don't know if I'm going to replace everything else at this point. I know some parts have been replaced on the car. Hoses are pretty cheap insurance at this point, so I might do that while I'm down here. But yeah, pretty clear cut. That's the thing with these BMWs, is it's not often rocket science in here. It's just plastics getting old, or in this case, somebody not reinstalling the radiator properly. In fact, you can kind of see how the radiator is further away on this side than it is over here. I bet you it's just not seated in properly. So we're going to investigate that next. Good news, the oil seems to be in good shape. Came back very dark. Looking around, didn't seem to have any coolant in it. Didn't seem milky or brown at all. Nice and deep, rich. I think we're in business. That being said, I didn't realize you need a 36mm socket in order to get the oil filter off, or the oil filter canister, I suppose. So looks like it'll be another quick run to AutoZone and then get this oil change wrapped up and get on to the cooling system. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a working E46. I got all the cooling parts put back together. Now, mind you, I thought FCP Euro would be a slam dunk, and it turns out they weren't. For some reason, they didn't ship out most of my order. I received 4 parts out of, I think, a total of almost 20 or so that I needed for the entire cooling system, plus the pulleys and tools that I ordered. But eventually, after some back and forth, I was able to get everything sourced, and the parts seem to be good and quality, and everything minus the radiator I have swapped out in the cooling system. I ultimately decided not to do the radiator because the radiator had already been replaced recently, according to service records that I found after I had already ordered all the parts. But the job itself was really, dare I say, enjoyable for somebody like me who likes to do some DIY stuff on my cars. And this one not being rusty or anything. I mean, not that typically engine components are even rusty in the Rust Belt states, but I enjoyed taking everything apart. Aside from a few weird Torx bits, there weren't really any special tools, and it was just good time in the garage for me. I took everything apart, followed the tutorial, and got it all back together, burped the system properly, and at this point, I don't seem to be leaking any coolant. However, this it seems to be the story with buying older BMWs. There is more. And now that I've taken this car out for some short test drives, gotten it up to temperature, I am absolutely smelling some sort of burning componentry. I do think it's oil. I think oil is dripping, and it seems that it's very common for these to have leaky valve cover gaskets. I can see from this gasket sealer seeping out right here that the valve cover gasket has been addressed. Don't know how good of a job was done, but either way, it does seem that we're getting some sort of oil leakage and then burning. Is this on properly? Oh, okay. It just looks like it's kind of sideways. So that is something that I will probably also have to address. Another job that really isn't supposed to be too bad. Apparently you remove some of this cowling, take everything off, the valve cover, clean it properly, put a new BMW or at least OE supplier valve cover gasket back on, a little bit of red RTV, back together, torque it down properly, and should be good to go. Should be a 2 to 4 hour job, and again, one that I might enjoy and should cost less than replacing a lot of the cooling system components. At that point, will I have a proper running M54 motor in this 150,000 mile E46? Theoretically. Other issues I've noticed thus far, the windshield washer fluid level light is on. However, when I peeked in here, I noticed that the windshield washer fluid is clear. So it appears that there's just water in here. And that could mean that the sensor down there is being tripped by the fact it's just water and it's expecting to actually say windshield washer fluid and therefore not responding properly. Or the sensor is actually not working. So I've just been running the windshield washer fluid a lot when the top is down or up, so I can try to drain that out. I could drain it manually, but I'm just sort of running it as it goes, and then I'll address that later on. Not super pressing. And then the last issue so far, outside of cosmetics, I'm going to mention once we're back in the car. Also kind of noticing that this is sagging. Hopefully that's not causing any sort of burning. Maybe I should address that at some point too. You will also notice it's incredibly dirty, but my pal Mason over at Fortitude Auto Detailing is going to take care of that for us in 2 days. Going to clean this up. I wonder if he can do the headlight polishing as well, because I think with some cleaned up headlights, then this E46 is going to look really nice. That being said, I did also notice that it seems to have had a little bit of bumper incident here. I think that's why the whole cooling system had been notched forward, the radiator knocked loose, and then rubbing up against the expansion tank. And then also looking underneath, it's clearly seen some curbs all along this passenger side. So not the most beautiful E46, but I wanted a bit of a driver spec. I wanted something that friends and family could simply come and use, and I wouldn't have to worry about it too much. These 18-inch wheels have seen better days. I'm okay with that. However, this Lexani LXUHP 207 rubber is a bit of a concern of mine, and we're going to talk about that when we're on the road, because I've got a vibration I'm dealing with. I have the windscreen up. That really quiets it down in here. Been pretty happy with that. Temperature gauge stays nicely in the middle there. The nav system is kind of patchy, so it works, but the screen doesn't look proper. So what I'm probably going to do is swap that out for some sort of nice looking integrated Android Auto Apple CarPlay system. However, the previous owner did have a little MagSafe adapter right here for the phone, so that helps. Probably going to get an FM transmitter just to listen to some music. However, the disc player works. Let's get to test out this Harman Kardon sound system a little bit. Can't play that too long, we'll get demonetized. Okay, let's go for a little drive. And I'm actually going to try to drive this thing a little hard today because I need to stress test it a little bit. I've got family coming into town in just a few days, and Alyssa's niece is planning on driving this. In fact, well, she actually doesn't know what she's going to be driving, but we told her that we'd have a car accessible to her, and this is it. So I want her to be able to take this E46 convertible out and enjoy the California coast in style and comfort, and I don't want her to be broken down on the 405 somewhere. So we're gonna push it a little bit here. We're gonna try to stress test it, because if it's gonna break down, I want it to happen to me. Oh, another super small annoyance, something that I think I'll be able to jerry-rig up, but back here, there's a little metal ring on the back of the passenger, the rear view mirror, and it rattles at speed. I tell you, E46s, or just older BMWs in general, not good for OCD people. Not that I am. I don't really mind those type of things, but all the little, anything plastic just seems to figure out a way to not work well. The glove box also is a bit finicky in opening. I might try to drop some oil into that. That might help. I like driving it around in S mode. These didn't make a ton of power from the factory. Can't remember the numbers in front of me, but I think it was 220-ish, 240 maybe in this spec. This one has the sport package, but not the performance package, which I'm okay with. The performance package would have firmer ride, firmer shocks. I'm sure it could use some replacement suspension at some point here soon, but we're going to make sure it's running and driving properly, and it's a car that we're going to enjoy having around for long enough before I put money into not necessary things like that. Motor seems healthy. I mean, I'm not getting on it hard, but it's confident. Pulls. Has a good sound to it. No check engine lights, obviously. Shifts really smooth. And I know some people are going to be like, oh, I can't believe you got the automatic. Those deserve to have a manual. And yes, I know the manual's fantastic in this car. I've driven E46 manuals. I know they're great. But like I said earlier, I wanted to have a car that people can come and use and enjoy, and it's a relaxing, chill experience, and is open to more. I wanted to be able to give with a car like this. I didn't want to just have it be a sports car, because realistically, this is not going to be a fun, exciting driving experience like it would have been back when it was new. It's even if it had the manual, it's not going to feel that fun. It's the convertible. I'm not trying to drive it like a race car. I'm trying to just enjoy the atmosphere around here. So I'm fine with it shifting for me. So the story on how I even ended up buying this E46. Well, as many of you car individuals might empathize with, I am on Facebook Marketplace more often than I need to be, and sometimes Facebook just tricks me into it. I'm on Facebook doing something else, and then it pops up with some suggested Marketplace listings, and I go, oh, that's pretty cool, and then next thing I know, I'm on Marketplace for the next 15 minutes. Well, this popped up on Facebook Marketplace near me, within my town, and I thought to myself, that seems like an okay price. It was listed for $4,000 and been marked down from $4,500, maybe even $5,200. I think no, it was listed for $4,500, marked down from $5,200. And this is a last model year, so the last one of the E46. So I thought, okay, that seems like a decent enough price, and they had a good amount of photos inside and out. Said it was a one family owner car, and was supposed to be in decent shape and running, driving, and things like that. I said, okay. And it had been listed for 3 months. And I shot it over to my buddy, the Topher Drives, and I said, he's actually owned an E46. He owns an M Roadster right now. And I said, this seems like a pretty decent deal, doesn't it? And he said, yeah, actually a pretty good price there for that, if it's in decent shape. And we talked back and forth, and we said, yeah, I mean, even if it needed a motor, these M54 motors really aren't that expensive, fairly easy to swap out. So yeah, it should be in pretty good place. Southern California owned its whole life. I think I had pulled the Carfax on it at that point, and just thought, okay, the risk seems fairly low. So I messaged the woman who had it listed and said, hey, I'd be interested in coming by and taking a look at it. If everything checks out, I'd like to buy. And no reply. And this one for weeks, just no response to it. So I thought, okay, well, you know, what's the deal here? And I looked at her Facebook profile, and I could tell it was someone who doesn't use Facebook very often. She hadn't updated her profile photo in years, no other listings, just not very commonly used. So I thought, okay, well, maybe she's not even getting Facebook notifications or something. So at this point, I had grown to the idea of owning this E46. I thought, you know what, the price is good. I've got our daughter coming on the way here, so I'm trying not to motorcycle that much anymore. And Alissa doesn't want to go on the motorcycle at all with me. So it'd be nice to have something fun to go and do, and not only just with the two of us, but eventually the three of us, throw the baby in the back here as well. And I've always had a soft spot for convertibles. I've always really liked them. But my last convertible was a Boxster S, and I didn't love the two-seater aspect of it. I told myself, all right, no more two-seaters. I want to at least be able to bring other people with me, and I have a little bit of extra trunk space and everything. So the E46 is always a BMW that I've liked. I think they look really good, and fewer electronic issues and everything than the E90s. So I was interested in buying the car. So I ended up taking matters into my own hands, if you will, and I looked this individual up on Google. Now, for those of you who don't know, it's remarkably easy to find people's addresses for free, very easy, just out on the internet, public information. So I stalked her. I looked up the name, I found her address, and just one of the days when I was out shooting one of the press cars, I drove over that way. It's very close to where I live, and lo and behold, here's the E46 sitting in the exact same spot the photos were taken. It was dirty, but it was right there. It looked just like the photos. And I thought, now what? Okay, so the car is there. I know it's there. This woman's not even reading my messages. What can I do here? So I messaged the Topher Drives again. I said, hey, what do you think I should do? I can't just knock on her door and say, hey, I know you're selling this BMW. Will you sell it to me? That's creepy. So he had a good recommendation. He said, why don't you leave a note on the car and say, hi, I live in the area. I've seen this sitting for a while. I wondered if you'd be interested in selling it. So I thought, that's a good idea. So I did that. I left a note on the windshield, just said, hi, I live in the area. I've seen the car for a while. Would you be interested in selling it? I left my phone number. Sure enough, the next day she messaged me and said, hey, yeah, car's for sale. Would be happy to show it to you. And I went over, checked it out, test drove it, and I didn't notice the coolant leaking when we test drove it, but I knew it would be a potential issue. I smelled what I thought was coolant leaking, but now in retrospect is probably the oil leaking from the valve cover gasket. But either way, I made her kind of what I thought was a fairly generous offer. We met in the middle at $4,000, and here we are. Now I own it. There's a few opportunities to get on it a little bit more. Yeah. Right up to red line. Wow, that's good. That seems healthy. Let's go over into manual mode now. Like I said, I want to drive it kind of hard. I want to, one of two things. If it's going to brake, I want it to brake now. And two, I want to kind of clean it out a little bit. Who knows how the previous owner drove it. I know it was owned by a grandmother at one point, so I want to burn this thing off a little bit. I want to open it up. I want to expand things and make any problems known. Okay, before you all come at me in the comments, I did figure out that this was installed backward. It also is broken. They didn't disclose that, of course, when they sold it to me, but there is a little panel right there that doesn't hold itself up properly. We'll see if this flies up on the highway. I still don't know. I probably should watch a video or something to make sure I do have it installed properly, but we're going to send it. On a positive note, the oil smell doesn't seem to be too bad right now. The car's been sitting idling here for a few minutes while I fixed that. Maybe that was residual. We can be hopeful, right? Either way, we're going to get it out onto Pacific Coast Highway and really open it up. See what this M54's got left in it. this is flipping up a little bit again. I wonder if I'm supposed to tuck those little nubs down into the bottom. Probably be something good to investigate, but wow, this is fun. $5,000 all in. I think I'm pretty happy right now. Vibration doesn't seem to be too bad anymore either. I kind of wonder if the tires did have some flat spots. Maybe they're rounding themselves out a little bit better now. Brakes might have a little bit of vibration to them. Nothing too terrible. It's a lazy transmission, that's for sure. You're not timing your shifts perfectly. It's almost like you have to shift about a second before you actually want the gear change to happen. Alright, so it does still shift for you in manual mode. That's good to know. Okay. Look at that. This is why I bought a convertible right here. So far the Italian tune-up seems to be successful. I'm gonna get it back, let it idle a little bit. Looks like our temps are still staying good though. Check oil and everything, and wrap up some of our thoughts on me finally being a BMW owner. All right, we got the car cleaned up, and I've got a game plan for future ownership projects. I do think I'm gonna tackle the valve cover gasket. I've also determined that I think it needs motor mounts. And let's be honest, it's a 150,000 mile car that hasn't been kept up super well, so there's probably a ton that it needs, but I've got a low speed vibration at idle, I should say, so I think it's probably could benefit from some motor mounts. We'll probably do the valve cover gasket, clean up the headlights, and then I don't know, I think I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy some top-down ownership. So I suspect you'll see more on the car as certain things go wrong. I do plan on doing a video when I do something about the head unit, see what I get for that, swapping that out. I don't know, maybe I'll do some more interior things. I'm just now seeing that my little makeshift holder for that that side thing there, whatever you call it, windscreen has come out, so that's unfortunate. So there's going to be a lot to address, but there's something about these. I just think they're classic, and I'm excited to own it. So thank you all for watching, and be sure to subscribe for more painful E46 ownership videos, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.